following interviews and commentaries are for entertainment only. The views and opinions expressed therein are those of the individual speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Sheranian Communications, KHQN, or Utah Valley Live. And welcome to Utah Valley Live. Hi, I'm Kent Vorkink, one of the voices on Utah Valley Live that you hear every once in a while on AM 1480. Today I'm coming to you from the Sheranian Broadcasting Center in downtown Provo, where according to weather.com, it's 92 degrees outside at 4:03 in the afternoon. Although if you ask me, it feels like it's 92 degrees inside. We're still working with our air conditioner here, so it's pretty exciting, which is in fact why I'm coming to you also on UtahValleyLive.com, where we typically simulcast with AM 1480 with a internet TV video stream. Today I've got the lights off. I'm going with the audio webcast on UtahValleyLive.com only, so that we'll keep the studio a little bit cooler for Kim Power Stilson, who's up at 5 p.m. today with her Healthy, Wealthy, and Wow show. And I think she's got Steve Shank on as her co-host guest again. We'll see, but they're due in at 5 o'clock. So if you're someplace cool, and hopefully you are, and you're settling in for some entertainment here on AM 1480 Utah Valley Live, then please look forward to Kim and Steve coming up in about an hour. In this show, what we're going to do is I'm going to give a little bit of a background of Utah Valley Live. Now, I've done this occasionally, time to time, and it's appropriate because we seem to change and amend what we're doing just a little bit. Hence, here I am broadcasting a audio cast more than a webcast or a video stream. But Utah Valley Live was initially started just about a year ago with my partner, Pete Hansen, and we ended up doing some shows under one of our channels on Ustream called WeGo, and we went out into the community and we broadcast some of the downtown Provo rooftop concert series last year. We also went out to the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life at UVU. We sent a team of people, our correspondents, down to Seven Peaks, the water park, for the parties that they have there on Friday nights. We had a lot of fun. And what we determined is that there's a growing interest in having live video streaming from the community. Right now, there's so many media choices. You happen to be listening on the radio. You've chosen radio right now, likely because you're in the car. And by the way, I've got on screen in front of me the commuterlink.utah.gov's traffic cameras. And so if you're actually out there, and I'm not scanning all of them at the same time, I've got the grid in front of me. So if you're in a car and you're wondering if there's a backup anyplace in Utah Valley, I can look on the traffic camera for you. All you have to do is text a message in to the station line, which is 801-871-5476. That's 801-871-KHQN. And I'll go ahead and look it up for you. Or if you have a comment, you can also text it in. Or if you're really bold and you have something to say on the air, you can try giving us a call at that same number, 801-871-5476, and I'll try and pick you up live, because that's what we do live, and I'm in studio by myself, which means I'm answering phones. You may hear the broadcast, and I'll let you know that we've got you, and we'll take your comment. One of the things that we're looking to do, in fact, what spurred this show today, was this morning I just happened to catch on Ustream, which is the platform that we're using for our live video, internet, TV, whatever you want to call it, live streaming. And there was an announcement, a press conference, maybe it was yesterday, and I just caught the replay of it, which is what happens often with our shows, is that we go live on the radio and also on UtahValleyLive.com, and we have a certain number of people that are able to watch us live, and then we have a factor of 10 or 20 times that end up, or more, that will end up watching the show on demand in the archives. And so each of our different show hosts, for example, today we had at noon Dr. Carolyn McGuire from Animal Medical Services, a veterinarian. She brought in some of her furry friends, some hamsters, and then also some kittens. And you can watch that show if you go to UtahValleyLive.com and look for the past shows links off the schedule. And so each of our show hosts, and we have at any given time 10 to 20 different show hosts, depending on schedules and who's signed up to take various times. We have the opportunity, you can look at those shows. We've had, since we've started this portion of Utah Valley Live, these talk shows back in October with the Pat Sheranian show, we have, I think, 300, 400, 500 recorded videos, and that's hour-long shows. That's probably more than anybody would want to do unless they were incarcerated and it was deemed not to be cruel and unusual punishment to make them watch it. But there's some really interesting shows that come on. And back a little bit to the background again. When Pete and I were cooking up this idea, Pete has a background, 30 years or so in video work, broadcast television, and 4 or 5 years ago, he attempted to create Utah Valley TV, Utah Valley Television. And at the time, it played on Channel 20. And it was a good start, but it was very difficult at that time to get a viewership or a listenership. And so we were looking for a method about a year and a half ago to come up with something that we could distribute original content. We were talking with one of the operators of one of our cities here in Utah Valley that has its own cable station, and they were looking for content, and we were trying to figure out how we might be able to put some original content that was Utah Valley centric on the air. And so we actually thought that was a great idea. And then we put it on the shelf as we were busy doing other projects. And through the help of a UVU intern, a young man who was graduating in either broadcasting or digital media, that was in one of Pete's classes at UVU, Dustin Groff, he ended up coming on to do an internship, and he's the one who helped us get Utah Valley Live off the air with our WeGo program last summer. And after we saw that it could work and work well, as we had hundreds of viewers for our live coverage of some of these events, then it was back to what do we want to do next, rather than at the time we were just sending out college students and friends as correspondents. And we thought, well, okay, that's fine, but that's not really a business. And it was when Pat Sheranian and I were talking in, it must have been September of last year, that Pat Sheranian, for those who know her from Utah Valley Live or the Pat Sheranian Show, or perhaps from AM 1400, many years that she was on Talk of the Town, and of course she's been on Radio 1 with Mills Crenshaw up in Salt Lake City, and has been doing radio off and on at different times throughout the last 40 or 50 years. She wanted to go over and have a show on another station here in the Valley to promote her Kyani business. Now, for those of you who, again, listen to AM 1480, the Pat Sheranian Show, or the hours that Utah Valley Live simulcasts, you'll hear us frequently running Kyani ads. Pat and myself are independent distributors, and so she was thinking, gosh, let's go ahead and have a show, and we'll talk about what wonderful products Kyani has and how much they've helped Pat's health. Only the cost and the contracts that this other radio station wanted to provide were beyond her idea of what she was willing to take on at that time. So she managed, through some fortuitous connections, to come up with a lead on being able to broadcast on AM 1480. And in fact, in October, I think it was October 4th of last year, we started the Pat Sheranian Show broadcasting from Pete Hansen's Provo Creative Studios in Provo. And what we're going to do right now is actually listen to some of those Kyani ads. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and I'll continue with the story of Utah Valley Live, where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're headed after this break. To create another revenue stream in 2012? Are you willing to put out the effort to generate some cash flow? Pat Sheranian is seeking 10 motivated individuals to join her Kyani team as independent distributors. Earn as much as you are willing to work for selling Kyani Sunrise, Sunset, Nitro FX, and Nitro Extreme. These great products are helping thousands of people enjoy better health and an improved financial situation. The most successful Kyani independent distributors started by trying the Kyani products, just as you can, virtually risk-free, as Kyani offers a 30-day money-back satisfaction guarantee. Try them and don't like them, and you'll get your money back, less the shipping costs. So many people today are challenged by obesity and diabetes, or don't have enough money for their needs, and they aren't doing anything about it. Don't be one of them. Call Pat Sheranian at 801-362-9552 to find out more about Kyani and what it can do for your health and for your wealth. That's 801-362-9552.
Folks, have you ever realized that freedom is spelled F-O-O-D? Food. After air and water, food is our greatest dependency. Taking control of that dependency ensures personal power, independence, and freedom. We can't control earthquakes, storms, martial law, dollar crash inflation, the global warming hoax, farm and garden restrictive legislation, job loss, crop failures, or the 2012 planet disruptions. However, if we have our own food, none of these can control us. Hunger can never be used to control you if you never are forced to stand in a bread line because you do not have your own bread. It seems the only freedom we still have control of is possession of food. If we don't control our own food, events are rapidly moving to use food to control us. Freedom truly is spelled F-O-O-D. Contact eFoodsDirect.com or call 800-409-5633. That's eFoodsDirect.com or 800-409-5633.
And hi, this is Kent Vorkink. I'm back with you on Utah Valley Live. In fact, that's another thing that I'll get to throughout this next 45 minutes as we warm up, no pun intended, with the weather out there. Warm up to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wild show with Kim Power-Stilson coming up at 5 p.m. As I was talking about some of the history and background of UtahValleyLive.com and what we're trying to accomplish, mentioning that Pat Sheranian started her show simulcasted on, I think it was October 4th. Her first guest was Julia Curry, and who's a friend and was connected with the Utah Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau, and who's recently, for the last 6 months, had her own show here on Utah Valley Live. She's taking a break right now for the next couple months. But they did their first show as we broadcast out of Pete Hansen's Provo Creative Studio. And we did that for a month, bringing on various guests. And it was really kind of fun as we learned how to simulcast and kind of the difficulties of not having a traditional radio broadcast, where we just, as I'm more of what I'm doing today, where there's no camera pointed at me, excuse me, but where we just talk, and instead we are doing it in front of the camera and going out over the radio. So a few complexities that we had to work out and learn about different equipment. It was a lot of fun, and we had some pretty good shows that we went through. And in that process, as Pat brought these different guests on. One of those guests that she had, in fact, it's still one of the most viewed shows in our archives, was Verl Osmond. Verl Osmond came on in October and liked it so much that he said to Pat that he would be interested in having his own daily show. And so as a result of that, in this process, we said, hey, this is going pretty well. And we ended up renting a space, or Pat did, above for the Sherinian Broadcast Center above Alan's camera at 42 North University. Now, we're in Suite 205, and we quickly took over to Suite 206 so that we'd have a larger broadcast space. Our first month was a little bit trying with Verl Osmond as he brought on his various friends and guests, and we had construction going on. It was really a lot of fun as we have now continued to improve our setup, so we have a pretty nice little studio with nice production lights, microphones, and you can see that if you have a chance to watch. Not right now. Right now, if you're looking at UtahValleyLive.com, you're looking at a picture of me, but not a live picture, just a photo. But normally on our shows on UtahValleyLive.com, you'll be able to watch with a pretty good image via the Ustream platform. And so as that developed throughout the month of December last year, Verl stopped his show about halfway through due to some conflicts that he was having and wouldn't be able to continue doing the show. And then we regrouped in the first of the year. We brought quite a few new shows on as we filled up our schedule, not the least of which was Diana Hoffman, BJ Stober, and then ultimately what became the 5 o'clock hour on UtahValleyLive.com, which is Primetime Health. And Primetime Health this is one of the things that makes me happy about being involved with UtahValleyLive.com or Utah Valley Live, is that we are putting out some really, I should say our guests, the hosts and their guests are putting out some tremendously good information. Their content is great. These are people that have quite a bit of experience. They're passionate about what they're doing. Dr. Michael Cutler on Mondays at 5 o'clock has branded himself the Feel Good Doctor. He's an MD who has an understanding of natural health also. And so for the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's been going through the adrenal system, adrenal failure, as he presents information using extensive use of a PowerPoint presentation, which is one of the things that we're able to do here on the video side of Utah Valley Live. We can show video clips, pictures, PowerPoint presentations. We can integrate websites. We can bring in phone calls. Pretty soon we'll be bringing in video feeds. And so there's a number of things that we're able to do beyond just, and it's all live, so that it adds that interaction. I'm going to get to that in a minute because I alluded to it this morning when I was watching this Ustream video with Ariana Huffington from Huffington Post or HuffPost. And as we work on our various shows and improve the presentation that we have on the radio, we understand sometimes you're left out in the dark, and we acknowledge that that's not entirely fair. We still appreciate our radio audience and encourage them to go and find the show. In fact, if you're tuning in now, if you were interested in listening to the first 20 minutes of the show, you would find it on UtahValleyLive.com. And because of that, our radio audience may hear something that is being referenced. For example, Dr. Carolyn McGuire was referencing her, she had these little furry critters with her today, and they were really cute. And we took some close-ups of them, which didn't do anybody any good on the radio, because all we could do was describe, but you couldn't quite get the full picture. That's where we would encourage you to go, and if you're catching part of these shows on Utah Valley Live and the simulcast on AM 1480, go ahead and find them on UtahValleyLive.com. And if you had to make a mental note as to when it is that you actually were listening, you don't have to watch the whole show. You could actually fast forward on the replay to that point and take a look at whatever was being explained, for example, on Dr. Cutler's PowerPoint presentations, or on some of the other shows that we have. A show that's temporarily off the air right now also is Ken Bowers, the 11th Hour with Ken Bowers, and he played a lot of really interesting clips political talk show. So we're hoping that our radio audience will understand that we've got these shows recorded so that they can pick it up later on or see what they might have been missing. So let me go through, as long as I was talking about primetime health. Our Tuesday show is Steve Shank, and he's the author of, let me think, I'm blanking. I think it's You Don't Have to Fix It. And I encourage you, if you haven't caught his shows, to go ahead and head again into our archives and catch the first couple shows as he explains the background for this book that he's written and gives us some in-depth understanding as what it's about and what we can look forward to when it's available for purchase. And Steve is also affiliated with eFoods Direct, which is one of the sponsors that you would have just heard on our last commercial break, and that you'll be hearing more about in the upcoming hour on Healthy, Wealthy, and Wow with Kim Powers-Tilson. All right, then on Wednesday is Diana Hoffman, a licensed professional counselor. And I wish off the top of my head I had the name of her clinic down in Salem, I think it is. Correct me, somebody, if you know if I'm wrong. Although I could look it up. I could Google it while I'm talking, I guess. And she has great guests on, and people, again, that deal with different aspects of counseling. And if you want to see her archive shows, that part's really easy because she collects them all on her website, which is healingtalkradio.com. Again, Diana Hoffman's healingtalkradio.com has information about all of the shows that she's broadcast so far, along with links to them that you just click right there. I should say they're embedded. It's an embed so that you can play it right on her site, healingtalkradio.com, Diana Hoffman. And then on Thursdays, it's BJ Stober with Family Voice Talk Radio. And last 2 weeks, in fact, BJ's been involved in other activities, hasn't been able to make it into studio. So yesterday, BJ had Nicolene Peck, who was on for the 5th time, very popular author and lecturer, and Nicholas Pond, who I didn't know it at the time when I put the information up on their site. Turns out to be her father. Really good interview, again, about family government. And so if you go to BJ's subdomain on Utah Valley Live, this one's easy, bj.utahvalleylive.com, you can actually see the information about Nicolene and Nicholas, links to their websites, and be able to watch that entire program on demand. Again, most of the people who are watching our shows on UtahValleyLive.com, even though it's Utah Valley Live, are watching them on demand. Just the challenges of life to sit down and have that hour to watch a show are challenging. But that's part of what's changing in our world, and I'm still heading that direction. And so then I mentioned on Fridays, it's Healthy, Wealthy, and Wow with Kim Powers-Tilson. And that show's changing just a little bit. And we'll find out probably more about that later on at 5 o'clock when that show starts. That's our primetime health show. But we've had a number of shows that, as people have had their schedules change, that you can still find links to them. There's a couple places you can do that. One, you can try and find them through the UtahValleyLive.com website. And if you happen to know what their subdomain was, for example, Ken Bowers, the 11th Hour with Ken Bowers was ken.utahvalleylive.com. That would be one way if you knew that. If you didn't know that, I'd encourage you to go to ustream.tv and type in Utah Valley Live and find our channel page on ustream.tv, where there's a link to all of the shows that we have, including those that are currently not broadcast anymore, but they're archives. The archived shows. Again, hundreds of shows covering lots of health topics, politics. For the first 5 months of the year, we had the Monica Barber Hour on daily from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with a number of different hosts, guest hosts and guests. In fact, one of those was Dr. Carolyn McGuire, who spun off onto her own show. along with Dr. Brent Gilchrist from BYU. So we've had, in that same time frame, not one of the things that we do on UtahValleyLive.com is sometimes we'll do a web-only show. And by that I mean that we don't simulcast it on the radio. Sometimes there's a conflict with what AM 1480 has scheduled to play and when we're able to broadcast a show. And we did that in May as we broadcast 5 weeks of a daily show called Single Marriage, including my favorite Thursday shows, which were called Let's Get a Divorce. Now, all those shows are archived with the exception of one of the Let's Get a Divorce shows, which the internet powers that be decided that it would disappear on us. But we have some 34 episodes, I think it was. 24 episodes of Single Marriage that we were favored to have a Kelly Snyder, who's a local divorce mediator, Amy Francombe, who's also Marilee Van Wagenen, and Rich Tripp, who are local area counselors, come on this show and give us lots of good advice about marriage and divorce, along with some real fun panel shows where we had singles on talking about what they're looking for in a guy, what they're looking for in a girl, on and on and on. And so some really good stuff that we have archived off these UtahValleyLive.com shows. Then right now we have we have a couple of people. Nicole Huntsman has been broadcasting a show at 4 p.m. on Mondays called Thrive, or Thrive with Nicole Huntsman, that corresponds with her business as a life coach and the adventures that she takes her clients on, which I think she has one coming up this week. You can find out information about that on thrive.utahvalleylive.com. But she's moving to Nicole's is one of the most watched shows that we have in the archive, primarily because she does quite a good job of marketing herself with social media, specifically with Facebook. And so she's actually moving away from a radio simulcast. As of a week from today, you'll be able to hear Thrive with Nicole Huntsman on the internet only, no radio. And the reason that I'm going to get into in just a minute when we come back for the next commercial break, the reason why this is possible and what the future bodes for with Utah Valley Live is the difference between presentation and participation. But for now, we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Are you an athlete looking for a natural boost to your workout? Have you studied up on the benefits of nitric oxide production to your performance? Then you'll want to try Kyani's Nitro Extreme. Nitro Extreme promotes cardiovascular health and improved blood flow, supports muscle contraction and relaxation, as well as nerve transmission. I use Nitro Extreme right before I lift weights, and I've never been stronger in my entire life. If you don't try Nitro Extreme, you'll never know what you're missing. Call 801-362-9552 to order yours today. That's 801-362-9552. By focusing solely on the evaporative cooling industry, SwampTech has quickly become the experts. We bring our clients the latest technologies and offer only the highest quality parts. SwampTech has been servicing coolers since 1997 and has over 3,000 current clients. Why would you trust anyone else with your cooling needs? Call 801-471-0491. SwampTech's services include seasonal startup and shutdown, installation of a new evaporative cooling system, repair or replacement of your existing swamp cooler, and flex duct run for whole house distribution. Call us at 801-471-0491 or go to swamptech.net. SWAMPTECH.net. Summer's heat has arrived. Don't spend another sleepless night because you're too hot. Call today for an appointment. 801-471-0491. And welcome back to Utah Valley Live. I'm Kent Vorkink, one of the voices on Utah Valley Live. And today we're just giving you a history of and a little bit more information about Utah Valley Live. We may be fortunate enough to get a phone call in from Pat Shranian. That may be coming up shortly. Meantime, presentation versus participation. That's what we heard this morning. In fact, let's see. Let me switch sets of headphones here. And let's see if Pat will turn down the speakers on her computer.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, now we can hear you. Well,
Hey, you're doing a good job
Well-
letting everybody know what we're doing. And but I did have a question since you're handling most of this. What did you mention? What's coming up for the future? Possibilities of Utah Valley
no, I haven't actually.
Live, information about kind of what we're looking for. I called the mayor's office today, and of course it's closed on Friday,
Oh, that's right.
to see if I could go and visit with them and get some of the heads of the different organizations and board members and so forth of some of the interesting topics going on in Utah County.
All right, slow down just a little, though. Let's do a nice segue into what you're going to tell them, all right?
Okay?
All right.
Good.
So where I was headed was to explain that the difference in versus presentation and participation is that participation, radio for a long time, and I think in the past we've mentioned that you were on radio along with Mr. Marconi at the very beginning.
I was on, actually, years ago with Elaine Cannon.
Right.
But then I spent 18 years on K-Star Radio, which is a small station also in Utah County, and with Mills Crenshaw in Salt Lake City.
Right. And so radio is a good example of a participative medium because you have the ability to take calls, just as we're doing now, taking calls from your listeners. And so people are familiar with this concept that you can have participation with your audience. Only what I was headed to point out is that here we have the CEO of Ustream on this yesterday or today, whenever it was actually recorded live, and then Oriana Huntington talking about their exclusive partnership for, hi, Kim, we're live right now, but come on in. And Kim Power-Stilson has shown up for her show that starts at 5 o'clock, Healthy, Wealthy, Wow. I'm on the phone right now with Pat Shranian, and we're live. But come on in, sit yourself down in the studio, and while we finish up this show. Great. And so what they were announcing is that, as they found out last year with CNN and others, that they referenced citizen journalists. And citizen journalists were those that the guy from Ustream went ahead and expressed that 1 in 8, now Pat, you'll be interested in this, 1 in 8 of the thousands and thousands of daily broadcasts on Ustream are done off of a mobile phone.
Really?
Yeah, 1 in 8.
That's a lot of fun.
That's a lot of people broadcasting. That's one of the things that most people, in fact, raise your hand right now if you're listening. Just 1, not 2, in case you're in the car. Raise your hand if you actually have a smartphone. Okay, because if you have
That's amazing.
if you have a smartphone, you have the ability to broadcast via Ustream or Livestream. All you have to do is download the free app, sign up for a free account. And
Could we do this locally?
well, that's where we're headed. That's part of why we started Utah Valley Live, was that so it was explaining as they were talking about these citizen journalists, that what they're looking for really is people who will get out there and provide news and information that go outside of the big media entities, so that they can get the breaking news. So they're obviously paying attention to that, and that's one of the reasons that we started Utah Valley Live, was to actually have correspondents out there. So if you're one of those people who's listening and you have a smartphone, you could broadcast a feed that we could pick up on Utah Valley Live. Now, of course, you could broadcast it on your own site, but then maybe nobody's looking there. And so
It's hard to drive traffic to your site.
well, and so because we have people that are aware of our programming on Utah Valley Live, we can actually take a feed from somebody right now. We're seeing an accident on I-15 that hasn't shown up on my traffic cam yet, and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm calling in," and they could either talk about it, which would be traditional on a radio format, or if they had a smartphone, they could actually hold their smartphone, and whatever the interesting event was, they could broadcast it live. We could pick up that feed and then go ahead and put it as part of our broadcast. And that's where it becomes very powerful, the ability of the individual person to become either a journalist or a media agent, somebody who's providing news. And so that's something that we anticipate Utah Valley Live doing. But before we get there, and this is back to what Pat's referencing, we're in the process of, as we've kicked around, and Pat's done a wonderful job in her Sherinian broadcast, or Sherinian Communications down here at the Sherinian Broadcast Center. By the way, she's at home luxuriating with her swamp cooler from Swamp Tech.
It's true. I had to turn it off a while ago. I got too cold.
Yeah, well, it's not too cold down here. They're still working on the AC. And so, not to me. And and so we, as we're
talking about community and more things from the community.
Yeah, that's where we're headed.
One of our cities in the county.
Right. Okay. So where we're headed was, but first I was going to go with the idea that the various shows that you've put on have allowed for audience participation. We've had some of the single marriage shows that had 30 or 40 people in the chat room. We have an online chat room. If you were watching this online, you already know that because there's a chat box underneath the window. You can log in anonymously and you can type in a note there. You can, if you're listening on the radio or you're listening after the fact to this archived show, then if you're watching live, you can then ask questions and make comments, which is really fun for the speakers, because they have somebody who's able to ask them a direct question. And sometimes we have a couple things happening. We'll have two shows going on in essence. We'll have the show that's going on, the official broadcast, and then we kind of have a second show that's happening in the chat room as people banter ideas around and have a good time in the chat room. And so it becomes very much a way for the audience to participate in the show. Hence, when I typically talk about our programming here, I don't say, "Oh, listen to our programs" or "watch our programs." I'll reference them as "join our programs," because if somebody were watching right now and wanted to make a comment, because we know that many people who listen on the radio never call in, and many people who watch us online don't say anything in the chat room. But if they were, I could read it right now in the chat room. And that's...
Well, one of the things I'd like to have you do, maybe, Kent, is give out the phone number I called in on, since you're able to take calls on the air. And, of course, I did text you, and we, texted back and forth, or not text, but sent you a chat, something in the chat room. But I miss talking to people. I'd like to have their comments, good, bad, ugly, better, whatever.
Yeah, well, we are live.
Yeah, we are live, and we are connected. Of course, we don't want any rude, uncool things on, but it was fun. We used to do that, a lot of chatting on the phone, and I've thought of doing buy, sell, and trade radio on Saturdays, because we always had time to chit-chat about, various items that were going to be for sale or where the yard sales were. But during the week, people are all, they're welcome to come in the chat room and ask questions right there, because as hosts, we sit and we can see the monitor and can see the question as it comes up. And so that's really kind of fun to participate with the audience and get their feedback on things. So I would encourage everyone to do that if you have that ability on the internet. Or if there's a show on, you want to make a comment, call in. And you pick up the phone, Kent, and pass it forward? Is that how that goes? Well,
yes and no. It all depends on the show, but sometimes for example, Dr. Cutler, who's in the middle of a presentation, may not want to be interrupted with a call. But yes, we'll answer the calls when we can. Right now I'm playing one-man band type thing.
You're doing it. You're doing all the engineering as well as the hosting.
Right. And but yes, if they could call in, we would. Call in means, like, for example, your call's been on now for 9 minutes and 21 seconds. and that means nobody else could call in during that time and beyond. Whereas if you were chatting with 10 others in the chat room, then everybody can participate. So
That's true.
while
Can you see the chat room today?
I can. And the other thing is that anybody who's listened to this station would recognize your voice. So sometimes, especially on our marriage and divorce shows, people might want to ask a question or make a comment. And if they were to call in, somebody might recognize their voice. This is, in a sense, even though there's 500,000 people that live in this valley, it's a small community. And like we would recognize Kim's voice anywhere. And so she couldn't make an anonymous comment over the air, but if she were actually in our chat room, she could make an anonymous comment. So that's one of the reasons that we have both. We have the chat room that's available, and we also have the phone line. But Pat, we're headed into a discussion, just a quick one, about some of the shows. So right now, the way that sometimes somebody may say, "Well, how do you even get a show on AM 1480 here or Utah Valley Live?" Well, Sheranian Communications contracts with AM 1480 for a certain amount of broadcast time during the day. You're not in charge of all of the airtime that or all the shows that are broadcast. Isn't that right, Pat?
Right. Not yet.
And not yet. Well, and I don't know that you're going that direction. There's a really good show on in the morning on AM 1480 that regular listeners will be familiar with, which is Liberty Roundtable. Sam Bushman,
They do a good job.
and Kurt Crosby. And then the hours that we're not broadcasting, they either rebroadcast Liberty Roundtable or they'll pull national feeds off. And so we're just on right now 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday we simulcast AM 1480. And yet we do have plenty of growth opportunity. So if there's people out there who are saying, "Hey, I could do a better job than Ken could," okay, that's great. Come on the air. There's a cost to the...
There's the other extreme, too. Someone who has a great issue or a great idea or has something they want to say, but they've never been on the air. I will work with that person. We'll work together. I come on, interview you. You have the experience of working with me. And then if, we go beyond that, there's some rules and regulations that have to be followed when we're on the air. It has to do with content and behavior. But those are pretty simple, and people abide by them, and then there's no problem. But if you're out there and you have an inclination, but you feel very nervous about it, come and talk to me anyway.
Well,
We'll see if we can work it out.
Let's clarify that just a little bit. You're talking about them appearing as a guest on the Pat Sheranian show. Right. And so that's one option. If you want like a single show, if somebody else, for example, we have a number of people on right now. We've got our Alliance group that's on Tuesday at noon. They're with their home banking and family legacy. They put on regular workshops. These are accomplished presenters. And they actually appeared first on the Monica Barber Hour, and they now have a show of their own. If you have that kind of experience, that kind of business, that kind of message, Ken Bowers didn't do anything as far as a business goes. He was just very passionate about Ron Paul and about politics. And so he came on and bought the airtime, which he had done on K-Star for quite a long time also. So you have a couple ways that you can get on the air. Right now, we don't do any radio-only broadcasts. That's why, even though I don't have live streaming video, we're actually streaming the audio on UtahValleyLive.com right now. And we do have some shows that do not go out on the radio, as I mentioned earlier, that are web-only shows, like Nicole Huntsman's Thrive, which will be on next Friday at 2 o'clock. And so there's lots of opportunity. We're not constrained by the number.
It was a good show yesterday. I
Whose?
happened to stay up, Daniel.
Daniel Brigman's on the Conspiracy Street.
Right. I listened to that this morning, and it was really good. So I sent it out to about 200 people on my email list.
And that's another thing that we're able to do easily with our completed shows is you just take the link to the recorded show and you can send it out if you find a show that you like and you think people would be interested in. And so part of what we're doing, Pat, we're going to take another quick commercial break. I'm
going to ring off and go back to listening, and I'll look forward to hearing Kim and who her guest is going to be today. That will be interesting. Thanks for the job you were doing. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks for joining us on the air.
You're doing a good job.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to break now.
Have you ever realized that freedom is spelled F-O-O-D? Food. After air and water, food is our greatest dependency. Taking control of that dependency ensures personal power, independence, and freedom. We can't control earthquakes, storms, martial law, dollar crash inflation, the global warming hoax, farm and garden restrictive legislation, job loss, crop failures, or the 2012 planet disruptions. However, if we have our own food, none of these can control us. Hunger can never be used to control you if you never are forced to stand in a bread line because you do not have your own bread. It seems the only freedom we still have control of is possession of food. If we don't control our own food, events are rapidly moving to use food to control us. Freedom truly is spelled F-O-O-D. Contact eFoodsDirect.com or call 800-409-5633. That's eFoodsDirect.com or 800-409-5633.
Hi, and I'm Kent Vorking back here on Utah Valley Live with one of the first shows that we're actually just going to call Utah Valley Live. And that's what Pat and I were talking about, is that sometime in the next couple of weeks, as soon as we set it up, we're looking for a morning show. And then we may do it at 9 o'clock, maybe do it at 10 o'clock. We might do it from 9 to 11. But our intent with this show is to provide a live show focused on Utah Valley, where we have interviews with representatives from the various cities, from the chambers of commerce, from the various business, governmental entities that are designed to help business, from local theaters. In fact, yesterday Julia had a great interview with David Smith from Hale Center Theater, which you can find at julianow.com. And as we work a show that has the opportunity to bring in these citizen journalists, or what I refer to as citizen agents, only because I already had that website, and so I like saying citizen agents, as these people. So if you're out and about and you would like to, you come across something that you want to call in an event, or let's say that you have an event that you're promoting, that you'll have a place that you can call up and we'll go ahead and put that on the air or run a video clip of it. And so that's a show that's coming in soon as we kind of refocus a little bit of what we're doing for Utah Valley Live. That show will be called Utah Valley Live, just as this one. The plan is to have me be the primary host of that show, but I'll have co-hosts and different interviews that we do. We may even be able to grab Steve Densley before he officially retires from the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce. If not, we'll try and get Val Hale, for example, who's been announced as the new CEO and president of the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce effective August 1st. So we've got different things that are planned. As Pat mentioned, if you're interested in coming on the air because you have something that you're passionate about, whether it be a business, a cause, you can do so. There is a cost to that because we do have to pay rent. We have to pay for what we do here, and Pat would be glad to go over those costs with you. It's not a ton of money. We are entry-level broadcasting. In fact, a number of our show hosts, and this is kind of the side story that I didn't finish on the history. When we first started doing this, we thought, wouldn't that be great? And I said to Pat, well, we can stream it on Ustream also. And she thought, oh, that'd be nice, because Pat's, been in the movies and done commercial work in Los Angeles and been a fashion model. And so she's not afraid of the camera. And so, and I said, oh, and by the way, we can archive the shows. We had no idea at the time, because we were using a radio paradigm. We had no idea that we would have most of our viewers actually watch our shows after the fact on demand in the archives. And that is true, is what happens, is we have many, many, many more people who will watch it. So as we, in the archives. And as that developed, what we found, and we improved our studio appearance and our lighting, the equipment that we used, what we found is that a number of our shows right now aren't as concerned, believe it or not, about the live broadcast as they are about the fact that they can get reasonably inexpensive quality videotaping, although we're not using tape. We're at this point, and we even have the capacity to do it in HD, to record in HD. And so they're using it, and then they take those pieces and carve them up and put it on their websites. And so that's kind of the spin-off of the Training Communications, is that we've ended up with this little broadcast center here that can be rented or can be used for broadcasting your own show to the radio and then to the worldwide audience on the internet. So that part's been kind of fun and surprising as that has developed. And at the same time, that is available right now. We're trying and spacing our shows, which is why you've heard a lot of shows at the 4 o'clock hour that we're kind of moving around, because the studio gets hot. And as we try and transition, it's not hard. I've done in the past, Pat's done in the past, to move one show to another on the radio, because you walk in, you sit down, they stand up and walk out. It's not a big deal. But when we're doing a simulcast with a live video stream for internet TV, it takes a little bit more time to actually get things going. So, for example, when I stop talking at about 2 minutes till, then Kim and her guest will hustle into the studio. We'll set the cameras. The lights are already ready to go. We'll get their mic check done. All that by the time you actually hear them when we come back from commercial break at about 5:02. So we're doing that in 4 minutes, which we'd like to give ourselves a little more time. So we may do some radio broadcasts or audio casts like this at the 4 o'clock hour, but we're looking to spread our time a little bit so that we can make sure that we have that quality video production that our show hosts are interested in and that the viewers want to see. Because one of the other things that's coming in the future is the ability to then watch our archive shows in couch mode. And that's via, for example, a provider like Roku, the Roku box, or B-Box, or Google TV, or Apple TV. And essentially what it does is give you a chance to see shows that have been recorded and are housed online via an HDMI cable to your HD TV. So you'll get a much better picture, especially when we go in HD. So that's all coming up in the future for Utah Valley Live. But the key component is this morning show that we're going to see, and that we'll be looking for all sorts of guests for, sponsors for, our citizen agents out there looking around to provide us with news and video clips, our live broadcasts from around Utah Valley, promotions about things that are going on, different things as we create a community show, a very much a Utah Valley-centric show. Again, that's the direction that we're headed here on UtahValleyLive.com. And as we continue to simulcast some of our shows on AM 1480, we'll try and be cognizant of when we've got video up or something's happening and try and describe it to our radio audience. But we'd also encourage you then to go back and take a look in our archives on UtahValleyLive.com for the show that you were listening to, or if you only caught part of it, so you can see what went on. This is the future, the participative media, to where the viewer is no longer just a viewer, but in fact helps participate in the broadcast. And so we're joining that trend, somewhat at the forefront of it, at least here locally. And we hope that you too will join in the trend. If you've got a smartphone, you can be a broadcaster. You too could find something of interest to share with your neighbors here in Utah Valley, or with people around the world who are interested in what happens in Utah Valley. This is part of what we can do now. It's easy. If you have your smartphone, it doesn't cost you anything. It's a free app. You just download the Ustream app, you register for a free account, you broadcast, and we may get to a point where we can do the same thing with Skype. So you might be able to do it that way. We just have to set that up. What we're looking for is people who have a community interest, who say, gosh, I think this is breaking news, or this is something of interest, and maybe we can get this on Utah Valley Live. So, folks, that's kind of where we're headed right now. Again, coming up at 5 o'clock or a couple minutes thereafter when we finish with our commercial break will be Kim Power-Stilson. Now, I didn't see Steve here. I saw somebody else, so she'll have to introduce who she's got as a guest for us today. And so I want to thank you for listening, or in the case, well, actually listening, because even if you're watching in the archive, you were still just listening. Again, I'm Kent Vorkink. You can get a hold of us, me easily, at kent@UtahValleyLive.com. You can call into the station line. We say the station line, the studio line, 801-871-5476, 801-871-5476, and either talk to myself or Pat or leave a message for us. We look forward to your input and comments as we continue to craft what we hope is a valuable resource for Utah Valley, and enabling us to have better information and more specific to our lives type of entertainment and instruction. So again, I want to thank you very much. Stay tuned for Kim Power Stilson and Healthy, Wealthy, and Wow.